The title of my talk is, Can We Find Freedom Through a Different Lens? And I think that we really need a positive environmentalism is where I'm going with this. I just want to share a little bit of my life story. I think anybody who's ever needed glasses understands what it means to see things through a different lens. I know for me, when I first got my glasses, I remember looking across the street for the first time. It's like, those trees have individual leaves, right? I mean, like you knew they did, but I hadn't seen them in years because I needed glasses for a while, okay? So it really changed my perspective. The trees were always there. I just wasn't able to see them. And really, this talk is brought to you by Max Planck. I think probably one of the most famous, most important things he said was probably, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's a very profound statement. And we're just going to think about that for a minute. Okay. So anyways, my story begins here. I'm at the University of Winnipeg. And, here's my Max Planck slide that I missed. Procrastinated on that one, apparently. It's all good. So it's 1988, and I'm here at the University of Winnipeg with absolute certainty and really big hair. And, I can't believe it. Anyway, and I'm here, and I am learning. I'm going to be a psychologist. I know exactly what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to be a guidance counselor. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And then I take this course called Biology and Human Concerns. You know, I never took biology in high school, and the environment wasn't really a thing back then, and there was no internet, and so all this was really new for me. And I was shocked and stunned and amazed by what I learned here. And it came to a point of like, well, geez, you know, all these things are happening. This is quite overwhelming. Yes, climate change is real. We are causing it. Ocean acidification, the evil twin of climate change, is real. And we are collectively, through our actions, responsible. And it does appear that we are entering the 6th mass extinction of life in the history of life on this planet. And we are responsible. Now, that is a lot to take in when you're young. It's a lot to take in no matter how old you are. And it can leave you with an immense sense of guilt. And, you know, how could we be so horrible to allow these things to happen? How are we not taking more responsibility for this? And so, I didn't actually mean to go there yet. And so life goes on. And so I ended up graduating 5 years later with a bachelor's in biology and environmental studies and geography, because I was just a real keener. And then I ended up with my master's, and I worked in aquatic toxicology for about a decade. And I got to work in some really great projects. And I thought, kind of, you know, I really maybe made a difference in some of them, because that was what I did. After my first year here, I dedicated my life. I thought, I want to do something. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to do something to make a difference. And after all that, I wasn't sure if I made quite enough difference, but you know what? Then family happened. And I'll tell you, nobody can prepare you for that kind of life change, right? All the parents are snickering, ha ha ha. But you know what? Nobody can prepare you for the amount of love that you will have. Oh, really? For your children. It's just amazing. And it can cause you to do all sorts of things that you wouldn't otherwise do, like, yeah, I can leave my day job and be a stay-at-home mom. Sure, that sounds like a great idea. It's a beautiful thing. And it was, and it is for many people, but it also kind of became my definition of insanity, because that little guy on the right there, he talked as much as I do. And people I know call that karma. I'm not sure why. Anyway, that's what that is. Okay, so time goes on, and so I take on a home-based business that's about getting chemicals out of homes, and really it's just more about me getting out in the evening so I can talk to grown-ups, which is awesome. And usually our conversations focus on the environment, because I always have a hidden agenda. And those conversations, you know, I talked to so many people, and it was amazing, because what I realized is it didn't matter their political stripe. It didn't matter their age. It didn't matter their color of their skin or their religion. They all were really good people. They all had good hearts. They all wanted what was best for their kids. They loved their kids. They loved their families. And they were all interested. Well, maybe they weren't all interested. But they were all willing, in most cases, to listen to what I was talking about with respect to the environment. And so it caused me to think, you know what? We have a lot of work to do, but we're going to get there. When we talk about environmental degradation, there's basically 5 main causes we talk about in environmental science, and those are rapid population growth. Basically, when I was born, there were 3.7 billion people on this planet. Today, there are 7.7 billion people on this planet. It's more than doubled just in my lifetime. Okay? Unsustainable resource use. It's just a fancy way of saying sometimes we use things faster than they can be replaced by nature. Yeah, we can learn to do better. Poverty is a big issue. You know, when you can't afford to feed yourself, it's awfully difficult to care about anything else. Externalities, that's just a fancy way of saying that we do not include often the environmental costs in economic goods and services. It's not in their prices. So far too often, pollution and even mistreatment of human beings goes on that we just don't account for. And last but not least, an insufficient understanding of nature. Nature is incredible, it's amazing, and sometimes we just try to manage it, right, without having a proper understanding. One person 500 years ago who maybe said it best was Leonardo da Vinci. He said, learn how to see. Realize that everything is connected to everything else. And not that long after that, or well, 300 years, so I guess that's a good period of time, American naturalist John Muir stated, when we try to pick anything by itself, we find it attached to everything else in the universe. And perhaps, more importantly, Indigenous peoples all over the world have known this for thousands of years. We should be humbled. So we talked about the big 5, but you know what? There's kind of a 6th one that I just want to touch on, and it's not a cause, but it's definitely reduced our actions. And that is the anti-environmental movement that started in the late 1980s in the US, led by a number of, companies that have a lot of money, and they spent a lot of money on PR campaigns, and those PR campaigns were basically to teach people that, yeah, the environment's not really that big of a thing, and it's all exaggerated, and scientists really aren't credible. It's called, the Disinformation Campaign. It's written about really well by George Monbiot in his book called Heat in 2006. Naomi Oreskes and Eric Conway's book in 2010, Merchants of Doubt, also tells a really good story. And it's just one of the reasons that we haven't made more progress. So there are a few with a lot of money that are trying to dissuade people and trying to uneducate or diseducate. I don't even know what the word is for that, whatever you want to call it. But you know what? There are a lot of good, amazing people and amazing groups doing incredible work every single day. Okay, so, and now we know about those others as well. And so it's just time to move on. Now, of course, while I'm raising my family and, after I graduated, I just assumed at some risk, obviously, that, we'd be on this. And so to see the weakening of environmental legislation and to see the library closures, and there were dozens and dozens of them. One near and near to my heart was the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Library in Winnipeg in 2013. To see how Canada was behaving at the climate talks globally for many years, and to see government scientists shushed and preventing from accessing openly, from speaking about their research to the public. All of these things happened between 2006 and 2015. And it just was really baffling to me. Like, how could we do this? How could we not be on track? And it got to a point where we even had scientists marching in the streets. Hey, like, that is not only not very Canadian, eh? Like, it's not very sciencey. Scientists don't march in the streets as a general rule. That's just not like a thing that's on their agenda, analyze DNA, do graphs, march in streets. It's just not a thing. So we have this incredibly beautiful place, and we have a lot of work to do with it. One of the things that I learned in talking to so many people, and I just kind of thought about it, I thought, you know what? When I graduated, how did I feel? I felt, honestly, I was ashamed to be human. I thought, how could we do this? Maybe by educating other people on the same topic, maybe I'm causing them to feel the same way. Maybe this is part of our issue too. Maybe by educating people, I'm helping them to feel miserable inside. I'm helping them to feel like, this is overwhelming. These problems are huge. What are we going to do that we're responsible for these things? And I thought, is that going to help us with our problems? And I thought, no. I mean, they say misery loves company, so it's all good. But the reality is miserable people don't do good things. Okay? And the reality is if we look at the numbers, we are actually getting better. There are fewer people starving. There is less poverty. There are fewer murders and wars than ever before. And you're going, what? You're crazy. Yeah, probably. But that's the truth. It really is the truth. It's just that media never reports on our current situation relative to our past. Okay? And we are so focused on our own inner darkness and on our collective darkness that we sometimes just we fail to see that there is good happening out there. But there is. And so I'd like to introduce you to my friend Angus Harvey at Future Crunch. And he says, the world isn't getting any worse. We're just getting more connected. The intolerance, the bigotry, and the selfishness aren't new. The crooked politicians aren't new. The guns aren't new. The hatred isn't new. The racism isn't new. But what is new are the connected cameras. And that changes everything. And the reality is, for the average human being on the planet, there has never been a better place, and that story doesn't get told often enough. Thank you, Angus. I also recently read Steven Pinker's take, Enlightenment Now, and it does shed, dare I say, a lot of light on the human progress that we have made in the past 200 years, and it has been amazing. Now, none of this means that we don't have tremendous problems and challenges, and we absolutely do, and that is not what I am saying. But what I am saying is we are getting better, and I think that how we see things and what we believe are really important for the kind of future that we can create. And athletes know this, right? Athletes know the power of their mind for creating positive outcomes. Visualization. And visualization is not just about thinking about it, it's about putting yourself there, visualizing yourself there, feeling what it feels like to be successful. Dr. Norman Doidge wrote a book called The Brain That Changes Itself. And it's really about neuroplasticity. And it's incredible. What we're finding is if you actually physically do an action, your brain is laying down a new neural pathway. There's new connections being formed if you repeatedly do an action. But even if you just think about doing that action, your brain is doing the same thing. It's laying down these neural pathways just by your thinking. And how many of us have negative self-talk in our heads? All the time. Lots of people do. That negative self-talk is laying down pathways in your brain to make it easier for you to think negatively about yourself. And your negative thoughts radiate outwards and affect not only your behavior, but how it affects other people and our planet as a whole. We're all connected. Second issue, or second power of belief, is the Fajan, is they take little toddler elephants, if you will, and this is the breaking of an elephant's spirit, so it can be handled. And what they do is they torture them. Basically, they confine them, they take them away from their mothers, they dehydrate them, they starve them, they beat them until they learn that there is nothing that they can do to change their circumstance. Okay? And so you can have an adult elephant on a tiny little leash that could barely contain a chihuahua. And so in this case, fear really is false evidence appearing real. But it doesn't matter that the evidence is false because the elephant believes it. And so it is helpless to change its circumstances. Power of belief. The placebo effect, that's a thing. Just believing you're taking something can actually help you feel better. Your body is physiologically changing. Power of belief. And here, this is where you're going to think, I have completely lost it, and you are probably right. When I was a kid, and we didn't call it this game, but when I was a kid, we played a game at sleepovers. And imagine this. One person is going to lay on the floor, and 5 of you are going to be kneeling around the person, and you each have, I have no hand, but you have 2 hands under the person with 2 fingers each, and you're going to try to lift them. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, and you try, and it's like, oh, it's too hard, you just can't do it. I mean, you can do it an inch or 2, it's really hard. Then, it doesn't even seem to matter what you say, there's a whole bunch of different ways to play this. You just get yourself in a mode. You're kind of like believing that you can do this. And then on a count of 3, 1, 2, 3, and it's serious, we would lift these people above our heads like it was nothing. And physics didn't change, and their weight didn't change, but what changed was we believed we could do it, and that we were focused as a group on doing it. So I think belief, working together, and focus is what we need. There's an old African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We need to go together. We have a long way to go. So there is always something that you can do about your planet, about the environment. You know what? The youth of today, I don't know if you heard the stories, but literally 1 million or more of them were out marching yesterday. They're skipping school, they're doing stuff. The youth of today are not bound by the learned helplessness that seems to hold so many of us adults hostage. They get it. And they're not lost. We think they're lost. What if we change how we look at them? Instead of thinking they're lost on their phones and they don't get it, what if they get it? What if they are smarter and more connected at their age than we ever were? They're not afraid to go out and do things. I see so many older people, oh, it's just the way it is. That's just, and we can't change it. There is always something that we can do. So my question is, can you choose to see a brighter future? What happens when you think about 2100? Albert Einstein said the most important decision we make is whether we believe we live in a friendly or hostile universe. So we need to choose to believe in our own goodness. The homework then is for you to open your mind, look for the good, and be willing to change the way you see things and respond to others with love and kindness always. Because I really think we have this. We just need to believe that we do. We need to build each other up and stop tearing each other down. We need to work together, and we can do this. It always seems impossible until it's done. Thank you.